Hello, 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 and welcome back to IVF in Your Pocket, your waiting room companion. Now, before I get started on today's episode about whether you should disclose whether you're doing IVF to family and friends, I want to plug my newish IVF workshop. It's very comprehensive. It's an IVF workshop that covers 5 different components, super comprehensive, from overwhelm to confidence. It's really going to equip you with anything you need. So check that out. It's in the show notes. You can find that on my shop. Share it with a friend, someone you know who might benefit from really having a guide through the different ups and downs of IVF. So in today's episode, we're going to talk all things about whether to disclose whether you're doing IVF and just some things to keep in mind. Now, whether you should share that you're doing IVF or not is such an individual decision. So, of course, I can't tell you what to do, but I can help you think about it a little bit more. This is one of my favorite topics because I don't think it gets a lot of coverage. I don't think a lot of people talk about this, even on social media. I don't think that there's this idea that maybe you could do IVF and just go through it and not really share with anyone, not because it's stigmatized, not because you're worried about what people will think about IVF, but because you're trying to protect your mental health and you want to go through the journey with as much support as possible. And so one thing that's really important to do at the beginning, if you can, of your IVF journey is to really sit down for a second. And you can do this now. You can pause this episode, grab a pencil, pen, paper, write on your phone. If you're in a waiting room waiting for an appointment right now, this is something that you can do. It's a little brainstorm. And just kind of take a moment to think about, for you, why you would share your IVF experience. And if you've already started to share, then you have something to go on. So why have you chosen to share your IVF journey? And then start to think about that. Like, what are the benefits? There's, of course, tremendous benefits to sharing the ups and downs of the journey with people who love you and care for you. And so that might be one of the big advantages to sharing. But you might find yourself in a position where you're starting to also think about some of the drawbacks of sharing, or you might already know some of the drawbacks of sharing, and those might start to become really heavy. And so you also want to take a moment to think about what are the drawbacks to sharing currently, if you've chosen to share and disclose your IVF journey, and what are some of the anticipated drawbacks? So I think this is one of my favorite topics because I think this is so empowering to think about your IVF journey as something that's yours, and you get to decide how to help yourself or not, how to protect yourself on the journey. That's like one thing that's in your control. There's so much on this journey that's out of your control, and deciding who you're going to tell and if you're going to tell is something that's completely up to you and, of course, your partner, if you're on the journey with a partner. One thing that I see when people come into my office is a lot of the times people are sharing that it's been really upsetting that they've shared their IVF journey with people and then people have not been supportive. And so sharing can become quite burdensome if you're in a situation where you've shared and you're getting a lot of unsolicited advice about what to do. You're starting to feel burdened about what you want to share in terms of updates with people. So people might be wanting to hear how things are going, when the transfer is, did you transfer, did it work? And then you can find yourself feeling pretty burdened with updating people, and particularly if it's not good news, or starting to feel pressured by people wanting updates. The other thing that is hard is that people coming into my office often share, of course, they're talking about the drawbacks because that's what's been impactful and, really cause some pain, is people can say really insensitive things. They can just not be very educated about the journey and then say something that's hurtful, and of course not intending to hurt you, but just because they're not informed. And that often can be making an insensitive comment or giving kind of some advice that can be really unhelpful. And then some people have really strong opinions about the IVF journey itself. So if that is, you find yourself in a family, your maybe family of origin, so your family that you come from may have a lot of feelings about IVF or opinions or religious beliefs, that if you find yourself disclosing to one family member, that can start to feel really heavy if they have particular perspective about the IVF journey. So ideally, these are the things you want to brainstorm about before you start the journey. And you're really looking for something specific. You're looking for who do I want to tell and why? So why does the person that comes to mind, like why is it that person? And you're really looking for someone that is going to keep your IVF journey to themselves, because of course sharing your IVF journey is not something that they should be doing, right? So someone who's going to share this information and keep that to themselves, share it with themselves and no one else, of course. And then you're looking for someone or a group of people who are going to do really two things and two things only. They're going to listen. Yeah, sounds easy, but unfortunately not always so easy. They're just going to listen to your experience and they're going to empathize. And so those are the two things you're really looking for. And honestly, that's about it. You're not looking for someone who is going to give you a lot of extra opinions or thoughts or ideas or stories, like anecdotes. Oh, well, my other friend did XYZ. Unless you're really searching for advice from your friends, you're really wanting those two qualities: someone who listens and someone who can really validate, empathize, and that's it. So, of course, you may really want your closest friend to know that you're going through this, because you tell them everything, and not telling them would be really strange. But you want to just suss out, because sometimes that best friend or maybe group of best friends, or that one cousin who you always share everything and you're texting nonstop, or you're emailing, or you're always on FaceTime, whatever, sometimes those people aren't maybe necessarily the best people that are going to be your supporters through IVF. And that's one thing that can be really clarifying and also really painful in the journey, that people talk about a lot when they come into my office is, wow, this is my best friend. I thought they would be more supportive. It's really shocking to see that they're not supportive in the way that I thought they were. And so there can be a lot of realizations about friendships that happen during this time. If that's you and that's happening, this is normal. This is such a, I'm just having so much empathy for this situation. This is a normal process to be questioning maybe your friendships, some of your closest friendships, if you haven't been getting the support. It's okay. You can focus now and decide, even if you've decided and disclosed a lot already, you can decide to not disclose at any point in the journey and stop telling people about, hey, I'm going forward with this transfer. You can just say, like, hey, I'm not just like putting a brakes on IVF. I don't want to talk about it right now, or whatever comes to mind about, I just don't want to talk about my IVF journey anymore, and close that door. And again, if you're listening to this episode and starting the journey, that's great. You can really think about who the people are that have these kind of qualities that are going to be listening and empathizing, and what some of the drawbacks could be for sharing and what some of the advantages are. And if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have the support system that you want, or you're deciding not to disclose, because once you disclose, it's a lot harder to take it back. And so it's really good to be judicious about it up front. So it's good to start small and then expand if it's feeling good. It's a lot harder to go the other way, having like broadcast that you're doing IVF on Facebook and then try to take that back. So I really strongly recommend going slowly and thinking really judiciously about who you want to share, and starting out with a really, really small circle so that, you know, you can have more control over who you share and not have to take stuff back or tell people, oh, I'm not doing IVF anymore, and kind of keep it under wraps. Again, if you are finding that it's not really going the way you wanted with the people in your life that you feel, even though they're listeners, it doesn't feel the same because they don't get you, that's when it's really important right from the start to get your care team in place, your support care team. And I talk about that in the workshop, and I explain more detail than I will in this episode about how to do that, but that's essential. And you want to do that right up front. It is time, if your friends are feeling like you're not going to disclose, or you've disclosed and they don't get it, this is the time to get into therapy. Even if you've never been in therapy, you're never going to be in therapy post IVF, this is the time to reach out to a therapist who is versed in fertility under your insurance. If you can pay privately and get a reimbursement, that's great. Find that support group. Listen to all the podcasts to get the support that you deserve. That concludes our episode for today. Hopefully there are some tidbits in there about how to think about disclosing whether you're doing IVF. And remember, until next time, you are not alone.